Hey Alexa, how you doing? All right, thank you so much for submitting your work. I've got your post up right here. Let's go ahead and go through it. First, composition looks great. We're just shooting for all hierarchy based on grouping, which is fantastic. Basically, you've got two groups here. Excuse me. Sorry about that. You've got two groups here, and the reason I'm saying you've got two groups is because of this separation right here. This would be considered a group. This would be considered a group. Excellent hierarchy here based on nothing more than grouping, right? So a good alignment too there as well. Okay, second one, we have a little bit more grouping going on, and then we've got the addition of a new size and a new weight. So obviously this is very clearly the first place you want the viewer to look, and then you want the viewer to go down the line. You've done some grouping here, and what we would have to say here is that without knowing too much about this vehicle, I would have to say that these should all be highly related. Okay, so in other words, if you're grouping, you wouldn't group wheels in with like interior seat covers. Do you see what I'm saying? You would make sure that all of your subgroups are related. So this is good. This depicts your second hierarchy based on one new size, one new weight. Excellent, good, great alignment there as well. The third one, you are introducing multiple contrasts in weight and scale, and that's great. But the layout here is not as strong, and the reason it has to do with layout. I'm sorry, with alignment. So you've got center alignment in the headline. You've got left alignment in the first section and right alignment in the last three sections. So that kind of forces the viewer to go like this. So watch my cursor. We go here, 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 and then here. So we're, as opposed to this, where the viewer comes in and just goes like this. Watch my cursor. Here's the eye path in this. Go like this, then right down the line. Here we're jumping around a little bit. You don't want that in graphic design. You don't want the viewer to have to jump around the composition. It should be a very, very smooth flow. So let's shoot for that here. Okay, other than that, the hierarchy here is created. Excellent, good job. Just let's work on some alignment issues here. I want to talk about center alignment a little bit in its relationship to two things. A, the adherence to the grid, and B, to a negative space. Now, center alignment in typography, center alignment, most professional graphic designers stay away from center alignment. And the reason is twofold. Number one, it doesn't adhere to the grid at all. So right now, we spend all our time creating this grid, right? And then for center alignment, all we're doing is taking our elements, in this case, this typographic element, we're centering those and placing them right in the center. No grid needed, right? Plus, center alignment does not enhance negative space at all, because as we can see clearly, this negative space up here is much, much more interesting than the negative space associated here. And the reason being is because center alignment creates symmetry. Okay, see the symmetrical negative space. And as we know in graphic design, in our basic visual communication, symmetry is not typically the most interesting thing in design. So therefore, I recommend from this day forward, well, in this class, let's stay away from center alignment. Okay, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to use center alignment. I mean, that's up to you. But for this class, I say for our best chance of understanding the grid, applying the grid, understanding negative space, using negative space as a design element, and ample saccadic movements, let's stay away from center alignment. I talked about saccadic movements. Remember, saccadic movements are the jumps and leaps that we make in typography. We were first introduced to saccadic movements in our spacing exercises, our letter and word spacing exercises. Well, we can also look at saccadic movements in compositional layout. So for example, we take a look at the bottom of this. Okay, so it's center aligned, right? So what you're forcing the viewer to do is get to the end of the line and then having to come back here and start the new line in these something other than a flush margin. So you're asking the viewer to come over here and then start here. Then this line you're coming in to start over here. So there's a jump there. Then we're coming from here down to here. Then we're coming from here back over here. So every time we reload to start the new line, we're forced to do this. All right. So it's really, really causes eye fatigue, and there's a good chance that viewers will not view an entire composition that is center aligned type. So food for thought, right? All right, so let's do this. Also, there's a little misunderstanding on the recommendations, or I should say the requirements for this assignment. Let me finish on that center alignment thing. Let's just go ahead and recompose this without using center alignment. Its relevance to the grid in this particular case is this. This fourth composition, we're required to break the grid. typographically, right? But by center alignment, there is no grid to break. You're just placing things in the center. Does that make sense? If not, let me know. It's a pretty critical principle and one that I think that would all students need to understand. So I can clarify that if you're not, if I need to, just let me know. I'll be glad to. A couple of misinterpretations of the requirements. Okay, so in the fourth composition, and if you go over to the assignment page, where the heck did it go? Gosh, I got so many windows open. Okay, so at the bottom here, we say the fourth composition, the cropped portion of the muscle column. Muscle column must be cropped, okay? Must violate the grid and must bleed off the page in two areas. So I've got the example in the announcements area, and the announcements are great this week. If you haven't checked out week 3, do it. And then check it out again and a third time and maybe a fourth time. There's a ton of information in this announcement, a ton of resources, and I can guarantee you when you spend ample time in this announcement, you're going to come out of it a better typographic, a better designer. I promise you, I'm telling you the truth. There's so much information in here. But what I'm after is this. All the way down at the bottom of the page, there's this example, okay? This is a great example of a cropped card. So the image is cropped from its background, okay? It's black and white. That's required too. And it's bleeding in 2 spots, means that it's exceeding the page edge in 2 areas, 1, 2. So in your example, we can see that we don't have the card, it's not cropped, and it should be in black and white. So put it in Photoshop, do a black and white adjustment layer, and crop it out of its background to make sure that it's bleeding the page edge in 2 areas somewhere, okay? Now, as far as adding multiple weights and scales here, I'm not real sure we see multiple weights and scales. And the reason I say that, if you're going to introduce multiple weights and scales, do so very, very deliberately, okay? Things like this tiny little, that it's just a little bit bold, so the viewer looks at it and says, I don't know, is that trying to be bold, or is that a mistake, or is it what's going on here? So if you're going to be bold, all right? But you don't, if you're going to make decisions based on creating emphasis, make sure that emphasis is reinforced so the viewer doesn't look at it and go, I wonder if that's supposed to be like that. There should be no doubt in the viewer's mind. Also, one final comment, this black bar right here, that's creating hierarchy. And we are trying to set all of our hierarchies here based on typography. So for this assignment, I would recommend we don't introduce any additional graphic elements. Right now, that's actually impeding the expeditious flow through the composition because it's creating a degree of separation. One could look at this and maybe possibly mistake this for 2 different compositions, this being one and this being a separate one, just because of this degree of separation here. Whew, wow, I just said a lot in a little bit of time. So those are my recommendations. I'm over 8 minutes here, and I didn't want to do that, but I want to be as thorough as possible. One other thing I just noticed, your compositions need to be 1 inch between. So be sure you go through that assignments page and really get all of these requirements down. So it's a 5 by 5 inch, 15 by 20 of field, 5 by 5 inch compositions with 1 inch of space in between. That's called a gutter. So 1 inch gutters, these look like they're greater than 1 inch gutters here. So you want to address accordingly. All right, I know I just threw a lot at you in a little bit of time, but if you have to review the video twice, please feel free to. Any questions at all, Alexa, please let me know. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing your final iteration submitted this Sunday. Great job. Thank you, Alexa.